Blair, great to have you joining me on this beautiful Thursday morning. And regardless of where you're joining us from or what time of the week, the month, or the year you're joining us, whether you're looking at this live or archived, wonderful to have you here as part of our little community that meets every weekday morning to just try to give a few thoughts and insights into the week ahead. So today, what I want to talk about, what I want to go over is this idea of measuring the distance to God, and how can we, is it possible to measure the distance between us and God, between you and God? Like, what does that distance look like? And again, we're coming out of the story of Noah and the ark, and the idea we go through floods, and we start to see the presence of God very differently. And again, it's not a distant God; it's actually a God that really has a presence in our lives. And I love that phrase presence. And here's a thought for you from Christian New Churchiology. And again, these are thoughts, just hold them lightly and see what you think. See if they fit, because they should resonate, because I think it's a beautiful concept here around presence. The Lord is present in each of us, but the further we distance ourselves from neighborly love, the more the Lord's presence is absent, so to speak. And the reverse is true. The more we draw closer to others, the more we draw closer to God. That's a fascinating concept in a lot of ways. So just think about that. I realize that, read that and it just kind of like, it's easy to sort of like a rock skipping over the water, not to maybe let it sink in the way that it could. And to let it sink in, I think, is to get this idea. How do we measure the distance between ourselves and God? Because a lot of us feel that, we feel God is absent. We feel God is not present, and we yearn for that. Like, there's an ache to feel that. And even if people don't put the exact words on it, that whole old thing that we all have a God-sized hole in our heart that is just waiting to be filled. I think there is some truth to that. So it's interesting, because what this is asking us to consider is the presence of God is based on our closeness to other people. The presence or absence of God, the distance we feel, is based on our closeness or distance from other people. Excuse me. That's a really fascinating idea. And so it's this idea again of it's not, what I love about this concept, right, is we kind of think of God up here. God's kind of the vertical relationship. Is not a terribly great way to see God, by the way, but that's the way a lot of people hold it. And then we have relation with other people, which is kind of a horizontal relationship, among peers, among equals. And I think here in Christian New Churchiology, we're being asked to consider is, don't kind of look for that mountaintop experience of God. Look for God in the people around you, and serve God in the people around you. Love the people around you, because to love those people is to love God. To love God is to love those people. Two commandments that are effectively one and the same. And that's a powerful place to be. And we can see that. A story I was thinking of, I wanted to share this morning, was a beautiful one from Father Gregory Boyle, and wonderful book somebody gave me, on his book, Forgive Everyone, Everything. And it deals with that forgiveness. And again, you can just see the presence of God in this. And it just draws us, these kind of stories draw us in closer to other people and their experience. And I think that's where we start to find the presence of God. And it was a story that really, for me, ended up landing like, oh yeah, I really feel God's presence in that story. So it's a simple one. Father Greg, for those of you who don't know, famous author of the book Tattoos on the Heart, highly recommend you read it. With his famous book Tattoos on the Heart, he talks about, excuse me, in this other book he wrote, he talks about this beautiful day that he had, and he's preparing for a baptism of what he calls one of his homies. And his homies are gang members who are trying to turn over a new leaf. They come and they work at Homeboy Industries. They come to the Homeboy Industries. They do a lot of different things at Homeboy Industry, from tattoo removal to job placement to counseling, do all kinds of stuff. So that's what he's talking about, is that kind of shift. And really, in a fascinating way, he had this experience where he's getting ready to do this baptism, and then he gets a call. He's going to baptize this homie. And what he's found out is that this young man's brother had just been murdered. So he's thinking, baptism's about to start. What do I do? Do I tell him? Do I not tell him? When do I tell him? And what he decides very prudently is to wait until the baptism is over, just so that this young man has that experience. It has it in an unsullied way. Like, he just gets to experience God's presence just for a minute even. So does the baptism, beautiful baptism. And then after the baptism, gives a little bit of time and then pulls the young man aside to tell him that his brother has just been murdered. And the young man turns aside and weeps. Now, Father Greg, and this is the genius of it. Father Greg's able to see the beauty in that moment. And what was the beauty in that moment? What was the presence of God there? Well, what Father Greg said that's really true, the miracle for him was that a year ago, if that young man had found out that same information, the immediate conversation would have been, who did it and how do I get revenge on them or their gang or their group or their family? It would have been this cycle of violence, this cycle of retribution. And that man, through his baptism, that young man through his baptism has realized, I can't live that life anymore. I'm just simply going to forgive. My heart will be broken. I will weep openly. I will be devastated, and I will not seek revenge. That's the Easter story in a nutshell, right there. There's incredible power in that, friends. Incredible power in that, because I think that's where we see the distance between people and God just go way down. And it's always worked out on this plane. It's always worked out on the horizontal plane, our relationships with each other. Christianity is a deeply relational faith. It is not an intellectual faith, and it really is about these deep relationships, from our jobs to our marriages, to our communities, to our, keep on filling in the blank. And it's all worked out at that level. So the distance, folks, that God is from all of us is simply the distance we are from each other. That's the ratio, which is kind of fascinating. And it should give you a lot of hope. Because if you're feeling like, oh man, I just can't feel God's presence, I just feel this ache, I can't feel God's presence, get out there and get close to people, not in a codependent way or anything like that. Just get close to other people, however that looks. If that looks at a meal, community service, a quick text message to somebody who you're thinking about this morning, however that might look, take that step and start to feel God's presence there. And I can guarantee you will make for a much better day. So friends, what we're going to do now is we're now going to shift. So let's get a little breath. What we're going to do now is I'm going to do a little meditation, a little prayer, a little blessing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say hi to folks on social media. For those of you joining us the first time, this is where we go from a message to just a quieter place to kind of let the day settle in, let the words settle in, and and then launch out into our day. So with that, friends, let's all get a big breath. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace and bring you home. Amen. All right, friends, let's give a little cheery hello to folks here. All right, just let me flip on to. There we go. All right, a little hello to people here. Okay. All right. Kim, great to have you joining us this morning. Sue writes, "Good morning. The more we love our neighbor, the more we love God." And it's so true. And it like anytime, Sue, and there's big implications to that, right? Because a lot of people will use love of God to act in its warped way to actually punish other people. And that's, anytime we sort of dress up our disdain for others in God's love, we're in trouble. And that I think is the very worst of religion. So there's that tie that you're talking about is incredibly life-giving, and we got to be super careful that we're doing it the way through. That's a really well said there. Martha, good morning to you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Talia, good morning. Hope you're doing great. Sherry writes, sadly, I think people suffering from depression feel the absence of God, but they often isolate from others, vicious circle. And there's a whole sermon there, right? It's fascinating to watch, and I think we all do it. I certainly do it. Like the more we feel the absence of God, the more we isolate. And it's an inevitable thing. And it's interesting. I remember in theological school and seminary, um, one of the professors there said, that's what it is to live. You want to know what hell feels like. Just imagine become more and more isolated to all eternity, which I thought was interesting point. Marcus, good morning to you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Linda, good morning to you. Hope you're doing great. And now let's flip over onto my page here. And then I do want to end with a little public service announcement. So just stick around for a couple more minutes. All right. Teresa, great to have you joining us today. Paige, good morning to you, my friend. Linda, good morning. Aaron, good morning. Betty writes, good morning. When I start to feel anxious, I know that I've drifted away. Have a wonderful day. It is fascinating, Betty, right? How there's just that. Yeah, I mean, we know so much of the presence of God by peace, which is really fascinating. Peace being the essence of heaven. It's a great point. And Teresa closes with, have a blessed day, dear ones, and totally agree with that. I do want to give one last offer, folks. Just a reminder, we do have a book club coming up. It's on Finding Chica. It will start next Wednesday. Even if you don't have the book yet, feel free to sign up. I strongly would urge anyone who has any interest in that. It's a beautiful story. It's about a couple who lose their daughter, Mitch Albom, about him and his wife who lose their adopted daughter to cancer, and it's sort of their journey. And that is not I mean, obviously, like, it's a tragic story, and there's a lot of beautiful inspiration in it as well about how to move through and with life's losses. I just think that's so important. We don't move past them, we move forward with them. And that's what this book is largely about. So hope you folks think about that. You can find that on our homepage, or you can always text me or shoot me an email or even leave something in the comment. We'll put it in there. So folks, God bless. Wishing you all the best. Take care. Bye-bye.